What is up, team? Welcome to the N1 Fitness Podcast. I'm your host, Marcus Sadu, and today we've got a bit of a different episode for you. We're doing a Q&A episode, and I brought my awesome client, Karmen DeCamillis, on the show, previous client, to ask me some common nutrition and fitness-related questions. So we're going to get into what are the common struggles that I see among my clients? Is it possible to lose weight and gain muscle at the same time? Does muscle weigh more than fat? Does nutrition change as we age? How long should you rest between workouts? We're going to dig into pre and post-workout nutrition, as well as my opinion on supplements and whether I consider protein powder a supplement. So sit back, enjoy this. Let's dig right in.
Okay, so what are the most common struggles you see among your clients?
Number one, the first thing that pops to mind is consistency. So that's essentially the issue around sticking to any sort of nutritional approach or program. It's people start out, they're super excited, they're like raring to go. They get awesome results in the first week or two, maybe 3, perhaps even a month. And then things just sort of start to get a bit boring, monotonous, and there's a new normal that's established, basically. It's like they start to feel better, and then that normalizes that feeling of, increased energy, their skin improves, digestion, all that sort of stuff. That normalizes, that becomes the new normal, and then it becomes almost harder to motivate yourself to stick to that program or whatever nutritional approach that you're taking moving forward. And so it just becomes a consistency issue where somebody finds it, boredom might even kick in, and then they fall off track. It's a slippery slope. They haven't implemented those habits. They don't have the consistency and the discipline behind them yet, and therefore they start to slip and fall off track. And if somebody's working with me, it helps in the sense that I'm there as accountability. But if somebody is doing this on their own and they don't have any sort of accountability in place, it becomes very, very difficult to stay on point long term. And then also implementing something sustainable. So that's sort of a given. But if you're going to fall off track, if it's some sort of approach that you cannot sustain long term, it's just a matter of time. And so it's really important to implement something that you can see yourself doing, a month, 6 months, a year, 5 years, maybe even 10 years. Things will adjust, priorities change, life changes, things come up, different work setups, all sorts of things. But implementing some approach that you can see yourself at least roughly following long term just sets yourself up for success right out of the gate.
Yeah, for sure. And then is there, for some clients that have trouble with the consistency, are there certain things that you try and instill in them to get back kind of on track if they've lost their path?
Yeah, what I like to do is sort of ask them, what's most important to you? Like if things are starting to slip, are the things that have caused you to slip off track, have they become more important? Are those higher priorities than, the nutrition program looking, feeling, and performing better? And just sort of realigning based on what you want. Like, do you feel better or worse based off of your food choices in the past week? Let's say if somebody slipped off track. And obviously, the answer is going to be they don't feel as good, but is the effort required in order to get back on track worth what you get out of the program based on what you're putting in? So it's basically just sort of a reprioritization of what's most important and moving forward from that place. And just establishing priorities again and like ultimately just what you want, right?
Yeah, for sure. That's what it boils down to.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like this stuff, you don't have to do this, right? You do not have to eat well. You do not have to, the body is super resilient. You're not going to have as good of an experience. You're not going to feel as good, but there are trade-offs to be made. And so you're not a bad person if you eat donuts, you know what I mean? You can have pizza. Sure. It doesn't mean anything about your character. It's just what do you want, what's most important to you, and how do you want to feel?
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Is it possible to lose weight and gain muscle at the same time?
Yes, it is. It is under certain circumstances. So beginners can lose weight. It's basically like a body recomposition. So beginners can lose weight and gain muscle at the same time. So they can lose fat and gain muscle. Their weight will most likely still come down because the fat loss process is much faster than the muscle gain process. And also they likely just have a bunch more fat to lose than they have muscle to gain. But a beginner can do it. Also, somebody who's maybe fallen off track, used to be in shape, used to have a lot more muscle mass, has now not been going to the gym, but decides to get back at it. Their body composition has slipped. They can also recomp. There is a thing called muscle memory, like it's absolutely real. So that person that's been in shape or had a appreciable amount of muscle mass will actually gain it back much, much faster the second time around. It's almost like the body remembers. So you can recomp. It's most likely going to happen in a beginner setup because they have body fat levels that can, they can get leaner and build muscle at the same time. And actually, it's funny, the fat that they are losing actually fuels the muscle mass that they can gain at the same time. So they get essentially a lot of bang for their buck versus somebody who's already quite lean and they've got an appreciable amount of muscle mass. They are just going to lose fat and most likely maintain their muscle, assuming that they still go to the gym and stimulate that muscle to stick around. But somebody who is, again, a beginner or is getting back in the gym after a period or a layoff or something like that, they can recomp and build muscle and lose fat at the same time.
Okay. So would they be sort of focusing on being in a calorie deficit, but also doing like strength training kind of simultaneously?
Exactly. Like you have to have the strength training component there if you want to build muscle. So the diet would handle the fat loss aspect, movement as well. If they want to do cardio or something like that, as long as they're in a calorie deficit, then the fat that they're burning can actually fuel some muscle gain, but they have to have the weight training component there in order to build that muscle. So you can't just eat well and build muscle just by like walking or living your day-to-day life. Yeah, you have to have that stimulus. And then also as you are losing fat, let's say you wanted to get leaner, Karmen, you wanted to maintain your muscle, you would still have to go to the gym in order to maintain that muscle, because if you don't use it, you lose it. But in a maintenance setup, you don't require as much workout volume. So you don't actually have to do as much. So let's say you wanted to get, bigger legs and you went to the gym consistently. And in order to get bigger legs, you needed to stimulate your legs in order to grow. So you would use something called progressive overload by just challenging your body in a way that is having it adapt week after week and therefore build muscle to lift more weight. Now, once you get to a certain point, in order to maintain that muscle, you need far less volume. So workout volume, like sets and reps and things like that, to maintain than you do to build. So let's say you needed to go into the gym 3 times a week and you were doing 3 sets of squats, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. You might be able to actually maintain your current level of muscle mass on 1 time a week in the gym, just doing 3 sets or 6 sets or something. Maybe it's like 30% of the volume or 60% of the volume, somewhere in that range to maintain that current amount of muscle mass versus if you want to build, you have to do significantly more. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah. I totally get that.
Yeah. It's just much easier to maintain than it is to build from like a effort and time requirement.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Very cool. Okay. Is it true that muscle weighs more than fat? And can you just clear that whole thing up?
Yeah. So muscle and fat weigh the same. So like, even if it was, I use the analogy of a pound of feathers and a pound of cement, they both weigh a pound, but the volume is significantly different. So fat is a little bit more fluffy and it takes up more space. Muscle is more dense. So basically, a pound of muscle will look significantly different than a pound of fat, but they both weigh a pound, of course, right? A pound is a pound. So the cement and the feathers will weigh the same if they're both a pound, but they will be significantly different volumes. It's really that simple.
Yeah, because muscle, it's just smaller. Like when you look at them, like if you see exactly like you said, it's just fat is more, it takes up more surface area or space, right? Exactly.
Yeah. So you'll see people with a significant amount of muscle mass will actually, it's harder to judge their weight, right? Because somebody who's like 200 pounds at 5'10" with, X amount, 30% body fat is going to look significantly different than somebody 5'10", 200 pounds with 10% body fat. The weight is distributed in a much different way, and muscle is denser, and then fat is fluffier and takes up more space.
So looking at nutrition and aging. So as we age, it's of course important to make sure we're getting proper nutrition and movement in, but like a 60-year-old body is a lot different than a 20-year-old body, say. So what would you say would be the most important factors to consider with regards to nutrition as we sort of age and get older?
Yeah, I like this question. So the number one factor to consider as we age is protein intake. So you need to consume more protein as you age, because something called the protein synthetic response sort of degrades as we age. So you need more protein to stimulate something called protein synthesis. It's not really important what that is, but basically just to maintain your muscle, to carry your muscle and maintain it. So one of the most common aspects of somebody aging and getting sick is loss of muscle mass. Somebody falls and then the snowball effect takes over. It's like, you hear, fall down, break a hip, die of pneumonia, right? It's like the degradation of muscle mass is sort of how things start. And then the ball gets rolling in the wrong direction. Somebody's less active. They're less likely to move. Quality of life takes a dip, and just things start to go downhill fast. So protein intake is really important. Protein will likely have to increase as somebody ages. It will probably, in the average person, actually decrease, which is exactly what you don't want. But it's really important for protein to increase as we age. And other than that, it's not that the person is aging and therefore their nutritional intake needs to change. It's the fact that as we age, our habits change, and therefore nutritional intake needs to change. So if you are becoming less active, you need to consume less calories, right?
Yeah.
Body fat tends to accumulate as we age because we move less, we do less. Our world becomes smaller. We're not as likely to go travel. We're not as likely to go work out. We sort of have this thing where it's like, oh no, I can't, help my friend move because I'm of a certain age and I don't want to hurt my back or whatever. It's a lot of it is mentality stuff. And so if you can sort of allow yourself to not get old per se as you age, then you're going to be doing yourselves a lot of favors on just the health front in general. Protein intake on the nutrition front, and then just habit-based stuff. Continue to do what you've been doing via movement, sleep, stress management, all that stuff. And you should age pretty gracefully.
Okay. That's good to know. I'm not 60, but I feel like, I want to be prepared.
I feel 60. Yeah.
Some days.
Right.
Okay. That's awesome. Okay. So you sort of mentioned getting movement in. So I know with your clients, you really encourage to get 10,000 steps in a day, which I came to love, I have to say. I try and do it still every day. It's just the best. But I just want to know from you, so why are you so passionate about, having your clients get that daily step count in? And if your clients want to take sort of a rest day, or just they're giving their body a break, would you still expect them to get in those 10,000 steps on that day?
Okay, so I'll address the second question first. No, like you could totally take say you want to get your steps in Monday through Saturday and then have like a super chill Sunday, just like chill on the couch. As long as you hit your total step goal for the week. So let's say it's 10,000 steps per day. If you hit 70K steps for the week, it doesn't really matter how it's distributed necessarily. There are additional benefits to having, adequate movement each day, which we'll get into in a sec. But if somebody just wanted to sort of front load their steps and then have a really chill weekend or a really chill Sunday, you can totally do that. That's fine. It's just like nutrition, right? If you wanted to have a few days, if you want to go Monday through Thursday or Monday through Friday where you eat significantly less, you can create more room for your weekend where you're more likely to go out to brunch and have dinners and maybe a few bevies. You can totally do that. You can accommodate that. And then over the course of the week, as long as your intake adds up and we're in the right spot, you're golden. Now, as far as why I'm so passionate about the steps, walking is typically significantly better for fat loss than workouts are. Walking, I have a whole, podcasts on this that people can go check out, but it just is more effective from a fat loss perspective, burning calories perspective, also light exposure. So letting your body know what time of day it is at the appropriate time via the eye, light goes into your eye. It tells your body clock what time of day it is. That really helps with general sense of well-being, mood, all that sort of stuff, as well as sleep. Okay. So getting that movement in will make your sleep better. Making your sleep better makes your nutrition better. Your nutrition better makes your movement better. And it's just, and so on. Right.
Yeah.
And then also stress management, like going for a walk works wonders for stress management. Being outside works wonders for stress management. So I really like walks as far as just taking a minute for yourself, like going out in nature, even exercising your eyes via different distances. If you've been staring at a computer screen that's 2 feet away from your face for 8 hours, like get outside and like go for a walk. You've been living in a little bit of a cage for the last 8 hours. So like get out and move your body, get the blood flowing, lymph flow, all that sort of stuff is really important. A lot of people do their best thinking when they're on a walk, or it gives them time to like contemplate, or, it's a form of meditation in a sense too. So it's really, really beneficial on that front as well. And then coming back to the fat loss piece, one thing that people overlook when it comes to workouts versus walking is that when you're walking, you're not eating. And when you are gearing up for a walk, you're probably not going to have a massive meal before that because you want to be able to walk without like a stitch in your belly. Walking then has an awesome appetite regulating effect. So you're probably not going to be like starving after you come in from a walk. So you're also moving for that entire time. It's really going to trickle into the rest of your day and set you up for success versus something like a workout that's like this concentrated hour. By all means, workout, love workouts. They're great for you. But I just look at prioritizing walking before workouts, and workouts are more of a bonus. Walking is like a baseline movement, sort of human must to thrive.
Yeah. Okay. So how you try and get obviously your steps in every day, and then how many like bonus workouts would you say you do in sort of a week?
Right now I'm doing 4. So I go to the gym about 4 times a week. And I just recently scaled that back. But regardless of what's going on, I make sure that I get my steps in. And it also depends where you're at. Like workouts, for me are just second nature at this point, just like walks are probably second nature for you. And workouts probably are too, because you've been at this a while. If you're somebody that's listening to this that hasn't had that be second nature yet, or you're getting into it, prioritize the steps first, because I think that you're going to get more bang for your buck that way. And then if you want to get the workouts in on top of that, amazing. But get those baseline steps because they're going to set you up for success on the nutrition and sleep front more so than the workouts, in my opinion.
Okay, for sure. And so speaking of workouts, how long, if people are doing say 4 or 5 workouts a week, how long should people rest in between those workouts, or should they be consecutive? Like, what do you think about that?
It depends on where someone's starting. So if they're just getting into the gym, you want to be sure that you scale properly, meaning you don't want to go from 0 workouts a week to, 5 workouts a week. That is an awesome recipe to get injured. So if you're doing no workouts, start with 2. Do like 2 full body sessions kind of thing. Let your body adapt to that, because after that first session, you're going to be super sore. And then you want to probably give yourself, maybe you do a Monday and a Thursday. So you have 2 days between that initial session, and then you have Friday to Sunday to recover, and then you get back at it Monday again. So you can gauge it with soreness, but it does depend on sort of where you are, and just make sure that you scale appropriately. Somebody who goes to the gym 5 days per week most likely doesn't get super sore because their body is adapted to that. Now, if you're going to the gym consistently 5 days a week, you need to schedule what are called deloads. But this is quite rare just because most people don't go to the gym all that consistently. What happens is they start going to the gym, then they might go for like a month, maybe 2, then they get sick, and then their body sort of deloads for them. So basically a deload is just a break from the gym, and their body deloads for them because they're sick. They don't go to the gym for a week, and then they get back at it, right? So if you're staying very consistent, you're actually structuring your programming, and you really want to progress in the best way possible, you need to deload and actually structure time off. So you can think about it like every weekend you have 2 days off from work, right? You feel recharged, and then you get back at it Monday. You can't just go to the gym for like years on end, or even like months on end. Like, you're going to fall apart. So you need to give your body a break. You also need to give yourself a bit of a mental break. So if you've been going very consistently for say a month or 2 months, you might want to take half a week off and just let your body recover, recharge mentally too. You'll be super stoked to get back in the gym the following week, and then you're recharged for another month or 2 kind of thing. But as far as the soreness goes, it sort of depends. You just want to listen to your body, and based on your training experience, listen to sort of the soreness signs, whether you're like feeling fatigued. One of the really clear-cut signs of overtraining going to the gym is interrupted sleep. So if you find that you can't sleep throughout the night, you're waking up to pee a bunch of times, for example, you might need to take a break off the gym. Obviously, if you don't go to the gym, that's not the cause. But if you are going to the gym on a consistent basis, that might be. Grip strength is another one that you can look at. If your grip strength starts to become very weak, you probably overtrained. Scale back a little bit, maybe for a week, and then you can get back at it. So it sort of depends if we're looking big picture, small picture. But just make sure that you scale appropriately, and then you can sort of gauge your soreness based on that, based on what you need to do as far as in between workouts and total recovery. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, I get that. And then, so if you're quite sore, say after a workout, would you recommend like going for a walk to kind of flush everything out versus just like sitting on the couch all day? Like, that can't be very, productive for the workout that you've just done.
Absolutely. I definitely recommend going for a walk to get what we touched on before, lymph flow going. So just the blood flow throughout your body, that will actually help with recovery. But if you're like, you should be getting your steps in anyway, right? Those should be buttoned up. So if you have workouts in the mix, that means that, from my opinion, or in my opinion, your steps are already buttoned up. So you're already getting your 10K steps a day. So also, if you're getting so sore that like you're at a point where you're like, I can't get off the couch, like you overdid it, right? You did the scaling issue was likely the problem. So take a look at that and make sure that you're not doing too much too soon. Just break yourself into it, and you should be good to go on the soreness front. But yes, get your steps in if you're feeling super sore, especially in your legs. Like, get the blood flowing, and that should speed up recovery.
Okay, great. Okay, so speaking of gym and all of that, so what would you recommend, and this might be dependent for every person, but in terms of nutrition for everyday kind of gym goers, so would you recommend people eat before a workout, and how long should they wait to eat after a workout, or what would you say to that?
So for everyday gym goers, like we'd zoom out a little bit. Actually, for everybody, we'd zoom out a little bit. But in this case, everyday gym goers, we want to look at total intake for the day. So let's say your goal is fat loss. Most people's goal is, especially if you're listening to this podcast. So the most important thing when it comes to fat loss is total calorie intake. So we start there and then we work in. So let's say you need 2,000 calories to lose weight. You want to set up that calorie intake in the best way possible that has you adhere to that calorie intake. So for example, you don't want to think I need to eat before the workout and right after the workout in order to like fuel recovery. But then you eat so much in that period that at night you then overeat your 2,000 calories because you jammed all of that nutrition into your pre and post workout window. And like, you might have not even been hungry, right? Like that is an example of missing the forest for the trees. So what we want to do is start big and then come in. So structure your intake in a way that has it be as easy as possible to adhere to your overall nutritional calorie intake. And then if you want to eat before a workout, after a workout, you totally can. If you're eating, say, 3 meals a day, you're probably going to be covered anyway. Like you breakfast, maybe you wait a couple hours because you like to work out when you feel like light. And then you finish a workout an hour later, it just so happens to be lunch. Like you don't have to overthink it too much. And, but I would eat in a way that has your session be as productive as possible. So don't go into the session super hungry or super full because that is going to impair your performance in the gym. So just set your nutrition up in a way that has you feel your best going into your session while keeping that total calorie intake in check, of course. That is priority number one. And then you can look at how to fill in the gaps, essentially.
Okay, got it. That's great. Okay, so I know you really encourage eating whole foods with minimal or single ingredients. So just curious, what is your take on supplement use with your clients? Like, is there something you recommend people take if they want to, or like a daily vitamin? Or I'm just curious about that.
Yeah. So supplements, if you're eating predominantly whole food, chances are you're covering, the vast majority of your bases. If you want to be extra sure, you could take something like a multivitamin. That would be totally fine. I used to have clients supplement a lot more. Now I don't. I've very much simplified my approach. Something like vitamin D, if you live in Vancouver during the wintertime, might be a good idea. However, we can store vitamin D. We store it in our fat tissue. So if you're getting adequate sun throughout the year and it's sort of carrying you over into the winter periods, you might be okay, but vitamin D3 could be a good option to go with. It just sort of depends on your status. And the only way to know that is to actually go get a blood test. So I personally like to focus on like sort of the big rocks is what I call them, is like nutrition and focusing on, total calorie intake, whole foods, making sure you're eating healthfully, adhering to that intake consistently. And then the supplements are like icing on the cake. They're like the sprinkles on the icing on the cake. Like they're so far down the line that if you're worrying about supplements before you have your basic nutrition down, again, missing the forest for the trees for sure. So you can supplement if you want to, with things like D3, like maybe even a fish oil, and a multivitamin, but that's just based on personal preference and stuff like that. A lot of people forget to take their supplements most of the time anyway. Like they're like, oh, I don't know, I was supplementing for a month or two and then I just forgot. Like it's so inconsistent anyway that,
I've definitely been there.
Yeah. So just I like to focus on the basics. I like to get somebody eating, moving, sleeping adequately. And then potentially down the road, if they want to look at supplementation, we can look at that based on personal needs and stuff like that. But big rocks first, for sure.
Yeah. And just side note, is protein powder considered a supplement, would you say?
I consider it more of like a meal replacement. It's sort of like a meal. Just because, I wouldn't consider protein powder a supplement just because it's essentially concentrated protein. It's out of pure convenience. It's really, really convenient. And if you tolerate it well, then awesome. Go ahead and use it if you'd like to. But I'd put it more so in the meal replacement category.
That's a wrap on today's episode. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Now, if you're interested in personalized one-on-one nutritional coaching with me and or workout design, you can head on over to the website at n1fitness.com/coaching, or just click the link in the show notes below. Follow me up on Instagram at N1Fitness and friend me on Facebook at Marcus Sadu. And then lastly, be sure to subscribe on whatever platform you're listening to this episode on. Thanks so much, and I will catch you on the next one. See ya.